Hello, my name is Rachel Vaughan. I wanted to share today the presentation that I will be giving on the 24th of May for the Adelaide event with Georgina Grace and Dale Holmes and Nereeda McInnes and beautiful Julia Starr. Obviously, I'll be sharing this after the event, but I wanted to set it up just to make sure that I had the presentation available to share if there's any sort of pushback from actually sharing this information. So forewarned is forearmed, forearmed is pre-organised. So the topic of what I'll be sharing today is Adelaide's ley lines, and symbolism will be their downfall. And I have done some research into the Adelaide streetscape. I've done much research previously over quite a few years, but in order to get this presentation together, I just felt this impetus to have a really good look at what ley line alignments there might be in Adelaide. And as much as I am fascinated with ley lines, I don't have a lot of spare time to be doing this sort of research. Generally I work really hard, so I don't usually have time. But with an event like this coming up, I had to make time. And quite frankly, what I found, even for me, growing up the way that I did with MK Ultra and SRA, this has blown my mind. My father was a high-level Freemason. We come from a very high-level Freemason called Joseph Wright. He was the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge or Grand President of the Grand Lodge. So, you know, they have a lot of this information, these people, but it's really obvious if you look for it. So I wasn't indoctrinated as far as I wasn't. There was some initiations done when I was very small, but I wasn't going to go along with them, so I didn't get much of it. So, but what I did get was my father's weird little things that he'd tell me. He used me like a confidant. So he would tell me things along the way, and I'll be sharing some of that in this presentation. So, what you're going to see today might be a little disarming, but I don't want anybody to be depressed by this. The reason I'm sharing this is knowledge is power. Once you know the way that they run things, the way that they co-opt and control these ley line alignments in straight lines, which are not natural. Ley lines are not straight naturally. They are created and forced into straight alignments through the placement of piezoelectric stone, usually in monuments and buildings, and I'll be sharing, the sorts of things that they use them for, to force those alignments into straight lines. Ley lines are naturally meandering. Serpentine, as the grandfather of ley line knowledge, Alfred Watkins, describes. So I'm not trying to depress anybody with this. What I'm trying to do is show how it's done so that then we can go out, look for those really obvious places, and then we can go and do the healing work there. So again, I'm co-founder of a ley line movement called Lay Love Down. And the whole idea of that is to get an army of people to go out and do the energetic work. Don't have to fight with anybody. You just do the energetic work to undo the damage that these forcible straight alignments do to the ley lines. And we can shift so much through positive intent, through sound frequencies, using crystals, using all sorts of different tools. We can do this easily, peacefully, and we can win. Okay, so this is the ugly part of what's done to ley lines. What I'll be sharing, in future and doing a lot more of is walk and talks in the natural aspect of ley lines. And I'll be doing that and would have done that by the time I share this for the Adelaide event as well, because part of that was on the Sunday after the presentations on the Saturday was to go out into a natural place and show what ley lines are supposed to look like and how beautiful they are. And they meander, they don't go in straight lines. So due to time constraints, I've got to keep this to about an hour for the presentation for Saturday. So I'm going to try Saturday the 25th. I'm going to try really hard to keep this to about an hour. So there is so much in Adelaide streetscape that I just won't have time to present. What I'm hoping is that those who see this presentation will go out and do their own investigations and then share that so that everybody knows where all these, forced alignments are, where all of this symbolism is in the landscape and in the streetscape. And if they don't have the secrets, it's not a secret society anymore. They don't have any power. So again, symbolism will be their downfall. I truly believe that. And so that's what I'm trying to do today. The name Adelaide means noble or noble-natured. And noble means belonging by rank, title, or birth to the aristocracy. And there are so many references to the word king and Kingston in Adelaide. It is ridiculous, meaning overlord, pharaoh, owner, master, basically. The king word is everywhere. So first, I'm going to start sharing screen. The first tile that I'm sharing here today is the 6 alignments that I've found that are forcible straight alignments. The reason why I believe these are truly alignments are because of the incredible monoliths, monuments, churches that they've placed on these alignments, Masonic buildings, etc. And this is basically a how-to of how to find these urban ley lines. Often people will contact me and say, how do I find a ley line in an urban environment? First thing you go to is to a church or a Masonic hall. Use the tools that I've shared, for seeing them, seeing the leys. Get dowsing rods and use those. But if you really want to know, what ley lines are co-opted and controlled, you just use the streetscape. You use Google Maps or Google Earth or whatever tool you've got, and look at the way they've set the streets out and look at the significant buildings. It is really simple. So this is where I started off at St. Peter's Cathedral. There was a little bit of I wasn't quite sure if I should go for St. Peter's Cathedral or St. Xavier Francis Cathedral. They're the 2 biggest cathedrals in Adelaide. I went for St. Peter's because it made more sense, and because I noticed that there is a monument out the front of St. Peter's, just opposite St. Peter's Cathedral, called the Ataturk Monument. That is literally the marking out of one of the ley lines on the ground. So you really can't, it's unmistakable. It lines up perfectly with the centre of St. Peter's Cathedral. So they've lined it out for us really neatly. And that's the type 5 alignment, the number 5 alignment. And that number 5 alignment goes straight through the Grand Masons Hall and eventually the Keystone Tower that they want to build. Okay, so again, use the tools available. These are the different places, the different factors that you want to look for in your ley line search in your local area or in the city that you live in, town that you live in, whatever. You look for the most important, most ornate, largest, oldest church, knowing that they are sited on a ley line. So Alfred Watkins, again, considered the grandfather of ley line knowledge, even though ancient people knew this long before Western societies were even thought of. But he basically said that every single church in the UK is sited on a ley line. In fact, the Romans used to use their sacrificial stones in the crossing point of ley lines, significant ley lines. When the Catholic Church went into the UK, they actually used the Roman sacrificial stones as the cornerstones of the churches that they built on those ritual sites. So the Catholic Church knew the importance of the ley lines and the crossing points of the ley lines because most really high church officials were also Freemasons. And that's a fact. It's something you can research. It's easily known. So this is the way that they do these things. It's called revelation of the method. They make it really obvious what they've done, the Freemasons. And by doing that and revealing their method, what they're saying is that we are too stupid to notice. In fact, because we're so stupid to notice, we are cattle. We're basically food, fodder. And I know that's a horrific thought. Unfortunately, a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today, well, not a lot, but some, refers to the kings, the overlords, believing that they are the apex predators and that they can predate on us in many different ways. It doesn't necessarily just mean through cannibalism. It's through energy harvesting. It's through lording over us how much better and more important they think that they are. So they literally consider themselves kings. And a lot of these people, again, the name Adelaide means nobility, from a bloodline family, from aristocracy. So they named the place to point out how important they think they are in comparison to the rest of us. So I wanted to look at Colonel William Light. Now, this is an amazing revelation for me, just to realise what exactly this means. So Freemasons are obsessed with names. Colonel William Light, Will Light, willing the light, controlling light, or light bearer. Now, light bearer, Lucifer, the light bearer, this is basically Adelaide's dedicated to Lucifer. And I'll show you the proof of that. But to realise that Colonel William Light's name, and he is the Surveyor-General of Adelaide, our first Surveyor-General, and he set out Adelaide, like he planned all of this. So to know that he's also a Master Mason, the highest level of Freemasonry, and that his name literally means light bearer or light manipulator is astonishing, and it made a lot of sense to me once I saw that name. Some of the symbolisms that you're going to be seeing is pretty astonishing. So it just blows my mind, basically. So again, the word Kingston is all over Adelaide. It means place of kings. Adelaide, noble birth. So these words are really important. Words and names are extremely important to Freemasons. There is eye symbolism everywhere in Adelaide. It's ridiculous. There are a lot of Illuminati triangles and pyramids with eye symbolism involved. There is the Chi-Rho symbol as well, which is a very old symbol from 300 AD of the Christ on the cross, basically. There is Kabbalah symbols. There's the Rose Cross relating to Rosicrucianism. There is these arched windows, which is part of the Freemason building template. They put these particular arched windows everywhere. And these are some of the other really obvious Freemasonic symbols that you'll see, the black and white checkerboard in various places. What you can't see because of my thing here is the sigil of Satan or Lucifer, which I'll be showing again in another spot. I also wanted to mention that the Satanic Temple has a fraternity in Australia and specifically also in Adelaide. So they're quite obvious about it. I've made this very obvious, so they've taken it off the Satanic Temple website, but I got a screenshot quite a while ago. So they are in Adelaide. They just don't really like everybody knowing about it, so they've hidden it recently from the website. One thing I want to mention too, with the buildings that we're going to be looking at that are all over Adelaide, they are made of piezoelectric stone. So what that means is that piezoelectric stone is a stone that has an energetic frequency. So, and it can be controlling when you put it within a ley line. So it actually helps to route the ley line. It controls and directs the ley line. Now, Masons are obviously very aware of these things. So most of the buildings that I'm going to be pointing out are made of these piezoelectric materials. Adelaide's Parliament House is built from West Island granite, sourced off Victor Harbour, as well as Kapunda marble. Both types of stone are considered to be high-grade piezoelectric materials. Granite is a coarse-grained igneous rock with clearly visible mineral crystals like quartz, feldspar, and mica, and marble is primarily composed of interlocking calcite crystals. Piezoelectric stones are sourced for these buildings as they have the ability to attract and control the Earth's ley lines in specific linear alignments. St Francis Xavier's Cathedral in Adelaide is constructed primarily with bluestone rubble, and in Australia that's either basalt or slate and sandstone. So basalt, slate and sandstone all have considerable piezoelectric qualities also. So the proof of this concept can be found in significant stone circles and monuments all over the world, which sourced piezoelectric stone, often from great distances for ceremonial purposes, and which are located on the crossing points of powerful ley lines. So an example being Stonehenge. The first iteration of Stonehenge was in 3000 BC, and the igneous bluestones for which used in the site were from the Preseli Hills in Pembrokeshire, over 200 kilometres to the west, which is pretty incredible. It's a long way to take those enormous stones. How did they do it back then? Talking, not even horse and buggy back then, so God knows how they did it. The sandstone, that's part of Stonehenge, is made predominantly of quartz crystal silica and has been tracked to eastern Wales. And the origins of the sarsen stones still hasn't been found. They don't know where the sarsen stones came from for Stonehenge. Sarsen stones themselves are comprised of sand-sized quartz grains cemented tightly together by an interlocking mosaic of quartz crystals and are therefore piezoelectric. So by being able to discern the piezoelectric nature of these materials and the monuments that they place in these ley lines, you get a bit of an idea of the puzzle that it takes to put all of this together. So, Colonel William Light. Now, again, Surveyor-General of Adelaide, Master Mason, planned out the Adelaide streetscape. This is Colonel Light Gardens. So immediately when you look at Colonel Light Gardens, you notice that there is this weird formation up here, which looks like one of these arched windows. In fact, it looks quite a bit like the rising sun version of these arched windows. Now, Colonel Light, William Light, willing light, controlling light, light bearer windows also control light and let light in. So very apt symbol for Colonel William Light, and just happens to be put into the streetscape of Colonel Light Gardens. This light name, this light bearer name, must have been absolutely a wet dream for the other Freemasons around him. They must have absolutely lauded this guy. So, you know, I know how important these names are to them. When I realised this guy's name, what it meant was just blew my mind. So they use a lot of wordplay, they use a lot of spell casting, and it underpins most of their beliefs. So here we have Light's vision on Montfiore Hill in North Adelaide. Now, you can see there's these striations in front of the monument. They don't go anywhere, so they're not paths as such, because there's a fence there. I believe they're marking out ley lines, and I'll show why in a moment. Over here, as part of this conglomeration, are some interesting sacred geometry symbols here. So we've got an octagon, a perfect square, a triangle, the triangle pointing to light place reserve. So again, that might be considered a symbol of the eye at the top of the triangle. Just in case we didn't notice the other symbology, they put this in as well. Also, there's two names that need to be taken into consideration. Penang Avenue. Penang Avenue in William and Colonel Light Gardens, very similarly named to Penang Avenue in Colonel Light Gardens is very similarly named to Penang Avenue, Camden Park. I think there's an A or an E or something confused there. I've put it in the wrong spot, but they're very, very similarly named. So in Camden Park, but behind number 63 Penang Avenue is a huge tunnel. You could drive through it. So that's a skip. These are houses. These are cars. You can see that hole there, that tunnel. You could easily drive a car through it. So I'm considering that this Penang Avenue is a marker for the fact that Winston Avenue is known to have a 6-foot wide tunnel that's walkable all along. Okay, so this is a tunnel marker, the name Penang or Penang. So if that's found anywhere else, that could be a marker in other cities. It could be a marker in other, Freemasonic built cities, another marker in Adelaide. I haven't had time to look through for all the Penang or Penang avenues or streets in Adelaide yet. And just to rub it in, here we go. This is Play School. This is the arched window. And look, they've got a crown just above it. So the indoctrination of our children into this Freemasonic, blindsidedness, it starts very early. It starts in Play School. So this is, again, Light's vision. So this is the statue of Colonel William Light. These are the striations, I believe, are ley lines. You see these around monuments all around the world. In particular, the courtyard of the Vatican very, very clearly marks out the ley lines that create the enormous portal space that the courtyard, the circular courtyard, actually marks out. So from an aerial view, there's the monument, Light's vision, and these are the ley lines. Now, I have extrapolated this and put the other lines that I know are the 6 main alignments that lead from St. Peter's Cathedral. This is St. Peter's Cathedral. This is the Ataturk monument, and underneath the line is a straight line that comprises the actual monument, that is the indicator line of alignment 5 that reaches and goes through the Grand Lodge, the Masonic Grand Lodge at 254 North Terrace in Adelaide. So what's really interesting here, these ley lines And these ley lines crossing over create the sigil of Lucifer, at least the top half of the sigil of Lucifer. This is it. Light bearer, Lucifer, his ley lines, these alignments create this sigil, and it goes straight through Adelaide Oval. So again, you know, these ovals are placed in really significant places to harness particular energy frequencies of lots and lots of people. Okay. So I believe that the fact that, I'll just go back, the fact that we've got this sigil here, we've got Colonel Light's vision, Light Bearer's vision. It's the sigil of Lucifer marked out here. I think this is too coincidental to not be planned. And again, you wouldn't notice these ley lines if I hadn't pointed them out. So there are so many correlations that I'll be showing today. It just blows your mind. And, you know, anything that people pick up that they find, you know, this also needs to be pointed out. Do these sorts of videos, share it. You don't necessarily have to put your face or your voice over it. You can do it in a way that you can, you know, hide your face and change your voice through, you know, some sort of software, but share it. Share it. Get this information out there so that they can't hide it anymore. Okay. Now, the actual streetscape of Adelaide is in the formation of a pyramid. So these are all arterial roads around Adelaide. This one isn't actually marked in, but it's implied. What it actually leads to is the Adelaide CBD being a perfect square, and I've marked it here. And this is the capstone. So Adelaide CBD is the capstone. So I've got this, you know, one of the most famous and well-known images of the Illuminati. You've got your pyramid and you've got your capstone, and with the eye in the center. In the center of the capstone, being CBD, is Victoria Square, and it looks like an eye. And you just can't make this stuff up. It's ridiculous. So there's the eye, and you know, it looks reptilian because of the shape of the way that they've done this to put what I assume is the iris. You know, I didn't make this, I'm just pointing it out. It sounds completely crazy. What's also down here are the 4 squares. Now, these 4 green squares are significant to Masons. There are 4 squares in Freemasonry that relate to particular qualities that I'll talk about in a moment. Take note of Kingston Park, and in Victoria Square, there's a statue to a gentleman called Kingston. But when I found this, it was like, oh my God, are you serious? Moving on. So again, Adelaide CBD, this is the capstone, Victoria Square as the eye in the capstone of the Illuminati pyramid that is Adelaide. Here is Charles Cameron Kingston's statue that is in the iris aspect of Victoria Square. In the corner of Victoria Square, I believe it's at this end, is the Three Rivers Fountain. Now, again, this is a bit of a stretch, but if you believe in the numbering and the obsession with numbers that Freemasons have, you've got 3 rivers, you've got a 6-sided hexagon. 6 threes are 18. My father told me that was a devil's number, but for others who believe it's 666, you've got your 3 times 6, you've got your 666. So you've got that also in the what looks like, you know, the tear duct of the eye of Victoria Square. They just happened to put the fountain there. Just behind that is Fool's Paradise. This is where the fringe usually does their a particular aspect of what the fringe does, and they've called it Fool's Paradise. And I just thought that was so apt, because they think we're so stupid that we're not going to notice these things, that they'll put in something like Fool's Paradise just to point out that we haven't noticed what they're doing. That's my way of looking at it. Directly across from the Three Rivers Fountain is the District Court building, which on the top of which is a nod to Rosicrucian's Rosy Cross. So again, here we have the Adelaide CBD. Here are the 5 squares. None of which is square, by the way. There's nothing square about any of these. It's not about the squareness of it. It's about the way that they're described. And these are all replete with intense symbolism and all named after high-level Masons. What are the chances? Okay, so light square, this is this one here. It took me a while to work out what this was, and I just happened to be watching a video and some symbolism popped up and it was like, oh, there you go. Okay, so it's the Chi-Rho symbol. So the Chi-Rho symbol was first used by the Roman Emperor Constantine around 300 AD. What this actually, I believe, relates to is the four squares of Freemasonry, which are also known as the four cardinal virtues. So four squares of four cardinal virtues, which are temperance, fortitude, prudence, and justice. Now, I think with light square, I think it represents fortitude, because fortitude means courage in the face of pain and adversity. So for them, light square would be, that aspect of the four squares of or cardinal virtues of Freemasonry, because no one suffers like Jesus Christ did on the cross. And I have to say, I have a real issue with the way that the Catholic Church represents Jesus Christ, in his prone, suffering, sacrificed state on the cross. I think that's horrific. I do not understand why anybody would want to have that hanging around their neck. I totally understand people wanting to have a symbol of Jesus, because Jesus is such a beautiful, beautiful example of humanity. But I do not understand why we would want to represent his sacrifice and his abuse. And the reason why I believe that symbol is so openly used is it's a warning to whistleblowers and those who fight the usurers. That's what will happen. That's what they want you to think. That's what will happen to you. So they put it everywhere. And it's really, when you think about it, it's pretty obscene. You get so used to it, you see it everywhere, and so you just think, oh, it's Jesus. But Jesus wasn't always hung up on the cross. He spent quite a bit of his life not hung up on a cross, but that's the only thing that people relate to him visually, is this horrible representation. So again, just amazing that they've got this particular symbol in that spot, and that it would relate to what did I say? Temperance, fortitude. Okay. Right. So the next square we're going to look at is Hindmarsh Square. So this one up the top here. Now, unmistakably, and I've inverted it here so you can see it more clearly, unmistakably and bizarrely, in the park plan for Hindmarsh Square is this King K symbol. And again, can I move this? Yes, I can. And again, this King K is extremely symbolic to the Freemasons. My father was obsessed with the King K. He spent quite some time etching a King K into the backs of the hands of the neighborhood children and putting prion powder into the backs of the hands of the children from scrapey prions. And I just won't go into it, but it's all about cannibalism. And he would pick at the wounds and try and make them fester, so it would create a scar with this King K on it. So the King K is a capital K that has these little striations, these little steps that come out from like this. Okay, so these little bits that come out. Right next to the King K in Hindmarsh Square is the street, Hyde Street, hiding. So I think that this would relate to the prudence aspect, or hidden aspect of the Freemason four qualities or four squares, because prudence is to be cautious and to be hidden, and hence Hyde Street. Now, as a child, I was taken into a local butcher that had the king name with a three-pointed crown. My father was at pains to point out to me that this was a symbol to let people know that that's where they could get their human meat. And I'm sorry to bring up cannibalism. I know it's horrific, but this is something that, I grew up with and I think is really important to share with people. I do not believe it's still being used for that, but unfortunately that symbol with the king name is still being used on that particular property. This is just an example of how obvious they'll make this. So Burger King has a ghost burger that they have a three-pointed crown showing above an Illuminati eye. Can it make it any more obvious? I don't think so. So ghost burger. So are these burgers haunted? Why would they be haunted? I'm just saying. And just in case you didn't notice or didn't pay attention to the fact that there's a King K describing the kings, the overlords cannibalizing the rest of us, there is Crown Plaza just above the King K in the actual streetscape. I'm not saying anything against Crown Plaza. I'm just saying, isn't that interesting that they would happen to have it there? So, they make it obvious so that so that they can point out to how stupid we are for not noticing revelation of the method. Okay, so Whitmore Square. So, Whitmore Square was named for British politician William Walrush Whitmore. Now, I should have mentioned too, Hindmarsh Square was named after Governor Hindmarsh, and of course, Light Square named after the light bearer, William Light. So, Whitmore Square named after a high-level British politician, and it's long been designated a dry zone. So, Whitmore Square, you cannot have alcohol, you cannot carry alcohol in Whitmore Square. And this would perfectly align with the prudence aspect of the 4 squares or virtues of Freemasonry. So far we've had temperance, and we've had, what was the other one? Cautiousness, fortitude. We've had fortitude and we've had temperance. This would relate to prudence. Prudence means to, how do they say it exactly? To be cautious, exactly. So to be cautious. No, hang on, that's not right. It's not Whitmore. No, Whitmore Square. Sorry. Where are we? Whitmore Square. So, sorry, we're on Whitmore. So, Hindmarsh Square related to prudence. Whitmore Square relates to temperance. Temperance meaning abstinence from alcohol, literally. This is the only square that I'm aware of in Adelaide that is a designated dry zone. So it perfectly relates to temperance, abstinence from alcohol. So the arched window shape of the square relates again to the Freemasonry arch. There is there has been a chessboard in the square. So just in case you didn't realise that it was named after a Freemason, they put the chessboard in there just to make sure that you do notice. And during World War II, there were air raid trenches built or dug in the square, so could still have tunnels. Adelaide was undercut with tunnels after a 1938 mandate was put out to have tunnels, trenches or bunkers behind every business place, every workplace, every meeting place and every home in Adelaide, particularly along the South Road area. And I grew up along South Road. So, there's tunnels everywhere in Adelaide. It's not just folklore, it's fact. So when you think about how many tunnels there must have been after what I've just described with that mandate, pre-World War II mandate, it gives you a bit of an understanding of just how many tunnels there are. Next square. Right, last square is Hurtle Square. It's named for Master Mason Sir James Hurtle Fisher. So all these very powerful Freemasons have squares named after them. So it looks to me like a chalice and a Christian cross in the square. This is the only square that actually has a square in it. So I've marked that there. So you can actually, well, if I hadn't drawn over it, you'd be able to see the cross there. So it's this one here. So there is a cross there to mark that square, which is the only square in these squares. But it also looks very much like a chalice and a cross. And I've put this here as a part of the symbolism. And it's very interesting because the only reason why I noticed it was because the Astor Hotel has this symbol and you can't see it written underneath there, but has this symbol to indicate that that's somewhere where you can get a drink. And it's like, are you serious? Is this? That's just how it goes. Okay. So moving on. Now, I didn't have a particular Freemason virtue or square for Hurtle Square, because the last one, the fourth one, Justice, I believe relates to Light Square, and I'll show why in a moment. This is just some of the eye symbolism in Adelaide. It's everywhere. It's just ridiculous. It is literally everywhere. So again, Victoria Square, massive eye at the top of the capstone. That's the CBD of Adelaide. That's the top of the pyramid that is Adelaide, mainly the main part of Adelaide. There is also the South Australian Athletics Stadium, just across from Kingston Park, has a massive eye. This is the Bicentennial Conservatory in the Botanic Gardens. And just in case you didn't notice that it was a massive eye shape, there's a semi-triangle in the gardens next to it and an A. I still don't know what this symbol is about, but there's an A also in the gardens that I need to look up. And it's also like a very, like a strong version of A, like the King K. It's got all those little filigrees around it. So it's obviously means something, but I haven't quite worked it out yet. So a lot of the eye symbolism that you'll see in Adelaide, and I'll just move this in a moment, has these striations around it also. So this is a perfect example. This is Adelaide High School, and the buildings are in a rising sun motif, as in a striation around what is an eye shape. So they've got the eye shape there. So this is a nod to Horus, which I'll show in a moment. What is also significant, and I'll move this again, this is part of the Royal Adelaide Hospital grounds, and there is another eye-shaped building. This is a very weird shape to put a building in. Why? So I'll show you why in a moment. You'll often see also the compass and square. So with an eye in the center, that symbolism is everywhere. And when I actually Googled all of the different stadiums and arenas in Adelaide and lined them up, it comes up to like a square and compass type formation, which I thought was interesting, given most of these arenas and stadiums are all oval shaped or eye shaped. So that's not by mistake. They do that on purpose. So, and this is the CBD of Adelaide in here. And again, at the centre of the CBD of Adelaide is Victoria Square. So that provides the eye shape at the centre of the arenas, creating the square and compass, which is the Freemasonic symbol here. Okay. All right. So we have all of these alignments, and they're pretty amazing. So we've looked at the symbolism. Now we're going to look at the 6 main alignments. So alignment 1, which is this one. Now all of these alignments run from St. Peter's Cathedral in North Adelaide, which is just up here beyond, just at the top here. So this is the pivot point of all 6 alignments and the beginning point. So St. Peter's on the first alignment goes through Kingston Park, the SA Athletics Stadium, through Adelaide Oval, which is up here as well, another eye-shaped icon, through the Royal Adelaide Hospital, which is here, and there's another eye-shaped icon there, through Karen Rolton Oval, which is down here. Oh no, that's Karen Rolton Oval, and a little bit further down here is Richmond Oval. So these are 5 large eye symbols along this one alignment in a distance of approximately 4 kilometres. So that's really significant to them. So that's one alignment that I would really, if you're a researcher, really go into it. And these alignments go for a long distances, like all the way to the sea. So you can follow them for a long way and get a lot of information. Like I said, I've only got an hour today, so I've got to keep this reasonably short. The second alignment goes to St. Patrick's Church. You can't see the saint, I've covered it up by accident. So it's St. Peter's Cathedral straight through to St. Patrick's. This is St. Patrick's Church. It's nothing to be, it's not small. It's obviously quite significant. Alignment 3 goes from, again, St. Peter's Cathedral, past Victoria Square Eye Formation, and the District Court that has the Rosy Cross above it, and continues on. So this is line 3. Yep. So line 4 goes from, again, St. Peter's Cathedral all the way through the Adelaide Club, which is very significant, and I'll be talking more about the Adelaide Club in a moment. So, you know, these are the really important buildings. There are many, many, many more buildings, churches, symbols, but again, time-wise, I can only go for the most important today. And the Adelaide Club is extremely significant. This 4th alignment also goes through St. Francis Xavier Church that I mentioned before, which is down here and continues on. Alignment 5 goes from, again, St. Peter's Cathedral through the Masonic Grand Hall on North Terrace, which is very, very significant. I mean, that's their most important building for the Masons, is their Grand Hall. And continues on to St. John's Church. So again, when you want to find these alignments, you find the most important church or cathedral, which is St. Peter's, and then you line it up with the other churches. Now, what's amazing is, as you can see, these are reasonably equally distanced from one another. So, and there's a reason for that. They try to keep things controlled, and they try to have a pattern to these things because it's obvious to them. But to us, the idiot plebs that don't know, we can't see what's right in front of our faces. And like I said, I didn't know until I looked into it exactly how, obvious this all is. So the sixth alignment runs from St. Peter's Cathedral again, through the Botanic Gardens, through King Rodnick Park. So again, there's that King name again. Through to a curious pyramid formation in Toorak Gardens, which I'll be looking at a little bit more closely, all the way to the suburb of Beaumont and the Mount Osmond Lookout. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is this alignment here also goes through Parliament House, alignment 3, Parliament House, yeah. So it goes through St. Peter's Cathedral, Parliament House, then past the District Court building and on. Okay, Parliament House being very significant, obviously, and I mentioned the piezoelectric qualities of Parliament House earlier. Okay, so these are only the 6 main ones that I've found so far. If I've got time in future, I'll go more into it and look into it a little bit more deeply. So I'm going to look into each of these alignments individually in a moment, but this is just to show them, in a little bit more clarity. So this alignment again goes through all these eye shapes. It's alignment 1. Alignment 2 goes through St. Patrick's Church and continues on. Alignment 3, Parliament House, goes past Victoria Square Eye. Alignment 4, so if I move this out of the way, goes through the Adelaide Club and continues on to St. Xavier's Church, St. Francis Xavier's Church. Alignment 5 goes through to the, goes through the Masonic Grand Hall to another significant church. Where are we? Alignment 5, St. John's Church. And I believe that's, no, and then the next one, alignment 6, this is really interesting, goes through St. Peter's Cathedral, through the Botanic Gardens, where the other eye-shape monument is, through Rose Park, which is also significant. Rose, Rosicrucian, rose means a lot, to this really interesting formation down here, which is another pyramid. So I'll show that again in, and that's in Toorak Gardens, and I'll show that a little bit closer again in a moment. So again, when you look at the way that these things are formed, it's always like the rays of the sun, the way that they striate out. Okay, so alignment 1 in close up. Here we have the Royal Adelaide Hospital. Here we have this weird eye-shaped building. This is, again, shaped like the sigil of Lucifer. This is the sigil of Lucifer. We saw this just opposite Light's statue on Montfeuille Hill. Here it is again, just in case you didn't notice it, they've put the eye-shaped building in, so you do. So you'll often see the Lucifer sigil with the eye above within a pyramid. This is a piece of jewelry you can buy on the internet. Not that I suggest you buy anything that revolting. This building is the South Australian Health Medical Research Institute. At the bottom here is the South Australian Genomics Centre, which is very interesting. And here is the Royal Adelaide Hospital playground. Now, again, we've got an eye-shaped building. We've got what looks like maybe tears creating a pool and ripples. I don't know. That's just the symbology that I can see there. What's really interesting is they've got this symbol, which looks like the radioactive symbol, as the center point of the playground. So why? Again, more aspects in alignment 1 that need to be focused upon. Again, there's this Karen Rolton Park, I believe it is, but just over here is what I was showing before, Adelaide High School, with the Burke Oval, I believe it is, above. Now, yeah, Burke Oval. So this symbolism could be seen, I've got it here, as a symbol of Horus. So the Eye of Horus, the sun above in Burke Oval, and these striations also relating to sun worship or the sun ray, the rising sun symbol, which you see everywhere, which again, you know, this is another form of that. So this is really interesting, and I extrapolated that to the next formation that I'm going to show, because even though I used to believe that this was actually the formation of a condor in the Adelaide streetscape, I now believe it's a nod to Horus. So again, from the last tile, we've got the Adelaide High, we've got Burke Oval, we've got this symbology of Horus, the Eye of Horus with the circle above being the sun. There's other, you know, obvious, very obvious eye symbolism all along this line. They're everywhere along this line. Now, the Eye of Horus, being, you know, the most important symbol of Horus, it's all within the wing of this bird shape that's in Adelaide streetscape. I've known about this one for a long time and I've shared it before. What I did notice this time around also was the 4 squares are also represented in the wing of this Horus image. This is the head in the streetscape with John Mitchell Reserve as the eye. Now, this is a really weird way to shape, you know, a streetscape. If you didn't want it to look like a bird's head, the chances of this just being coincidental is not possible in my mind. We have another oval above here that could again represent the sun, you know, the circle above. So, I mean, all you're going to do is Google John Mitchell Reserve Adelaide, and you'll see this formation. And because I've drawn over it, you can't see it specifically, but it's exactly that shape. So, you know, that's the proof. I didn't have enough space to keep, you know, representing things over and over and over again. But from a distance, this is what it looks like. And this is Adelaide Airport. So you've got, you know, these bird-like, you know, machines that fly in and out of the Adelaide Airport, and you have the symbology of Horus in the streetscape. Again, you know, the wingtips reach into the Adelaide CBD. So these are the wingtips of Horus. In the corner here of Adelaide Airport is another symbol of the Illuminati triangle with the eye. And in the very corner, and this is a highlight of it, is this rising sun symbol again, with this really weird meandering path. It's a weird sort of shape, which is similar to the snake on the Tutankhamun sarcophagus. So again, it's a nod to Egypt. It's a nod to their kingship. Now, again, I kept saying king is really, really significant to Masons. They've got king written into the streetscape everywhere, particularly on those 6 alignments. You will find the word king everywhere all along those alignments, or Kingston. Horus in Egyptian mythology is primarily the god of the sky, sun, and kingship. So he's associated with protection, healing, and war. He's often associated with the sun and the left eye with the moon. Sorry, Horus's right eye is also often associated with the sun, and which reinforces his connection to light and the celestial sphere. So again, there's this light connection, this connection between the symbology, the light bearer, Colonel William Light, the eyes everywhere, eyes letting light in. So they, again, that the eye is very important to them. So, alignment 2. Again, running from St. Peter's Cathedral to St. Patrick's Church, 2 significant churches in Adelaide. I was quite astonished when I kept directing out this, or following this ley line all the way through from this alignment, and it actually crosses exactly, goes all through to the Apostolic Church. So again, as you look at these alignments, look for all the churches that crosses through. And I found that my home, my childhood home in Edwardstown, where I was brought up, where I was trafficked through tunnels, where I was ritually abused, where I saw children murdered, it's on this alignment 2. I was not expecting this. This has coloured this presentation for me because it's made me feel quite sick, but I still think it's important that it needs to be presented. I would say that this might be, you know, every day that I live, there's a little piece of the puzzle that comes together of what my life has been and why it's been the way it has. I am obsessed with ley lines. I've co-founded a movement around saving ley lines. It is not lost on me that I live on one of these ley projections. So My father would have known this. There is a telecommunications bunker, a hidden one, underneath the childhood home that I lived at 8 Macklin Street, Ebbstown. So I would now add telecommunications bunkers as part of the system that they place these ley line alignments along. I would keep them or put them in the list of significant buildings and significant locations that you would find along these alignments. Oh, life is weird. Okay, so alignment 3, again, so from St. Peter's Cathedral through Parliament House, by Light Square, Victoria Square, past the District Court building with the Rosy Cross on the roof, and further through, and just happens to border Colonel Light Gardens. So Colonel William Light Gardens, which I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. So again, this is not an accident, it's not a mistake, it's not a coincidence. This has been organised into the streetscape on purpose. Alignment 4, again, cannot emphasise enough how important the Adelaide Club is. It is a significant building, extremely significant. This is where they all meet and make their plans. It lines up perfectly with St. Francis Xavier's Church or Cathedral. So, these are really significant buildings, as is St. Peter's Cathedral. This alignment is no mistake. It's no accident. It's no coincidence. It's there to channel that particular energy. So alignment 5, we have St. Peter's Cathedral again through the Masonic Grand Hall. Very important for them. This is the Masonic Grand Hall here. And St. John's Church, which is down here. So this is a picture of St. John's Church. Again, you can't make this up. They put these buildings in these specific alignments for a reason. And finally, alignment 6 from St. Peter's Cathedral. Oh, where am I? Go back. So we're almost at the end of the presentation. So from St. Peter's Cathedral through to this weird marker here. There's many, many important things, markers along here, but this weird marker in Toorak Gardens. Now it's a pyramid shape, so I've marked it here. Again, you've got the pyramid in these 4 streets. Then you've got the capstone. Now there's something in the centre, Ferguson Square. I haven't had a really good look because I just haven't had time. But again, they make it so obvious, and this lines up perfectly, absolutely perfectly. It goes exactly through that little alignment there. They're pointing it out, just so you notice. Where it actually goes through here, it's really interesting. So where you've got this weird square, which is the one here that I pointed out, and here, where you've got this weird square, on the opposite side is this weird marking streetscape here that's like an arrow. And I'm thinking, well, that's very interesting. So if I was to take these 2 lines and see where they meet, where might they meet? They meet exactly at the Mount Osmond Lookout. Now, if you take that line and you have a look at what's in between here at 357 Green Hill Road, Toorak Gardens, it's the former office of our ex-Attorney General, Vicky Chapman, and the current Attorney General of Kian Maha. Just happens to be right in between. Isn't that interesting? Fascinating. And as this line keeps going further up again, it goes through the bicentennial conservatory with the massive eye and the quite obvious triangle in the base. And again, actually, I should have really highlighted that because that's much more obvious there, isn't it? Damn. And this A, I'm not sure what the A is all about. So, welcome to Adelaide. So here we go. Now you might think, okay, all right, fair enough. Colonel William Light, their light bearer, all these Masons, they've created Adelaide in this shape. It's all been done in the past. Yeah, it's ugly, it's scary. They've co-opted those alignments, but is it really relevant today? Well, yes, it is, because they are just about to build the absolute piece de resistance of their entire system, the Keystone Tower, just behind 254 North Terrace, which is their Masonic headquarters, the Grand Lodge. And it just happens to be right near Synagogue Place and Tavistock Lane. And for those who don't know what Tavistock means, Tavistock is a version of MK Ultra mind control. So again, they make it really obvious. Hilariously, is also Vaughan Place, just in that location. I think that's funny because my surname obviously is Vaughan. It's my married name. I wasn't born with this name. Someone put that name in there at some point. I find that funny. That to me is like the old adage, it is written. I believe that part of my purpose here in this lifetime is to expose these things. The fact that Vaughan Place is there is just food for thought, I suppose. So looking up this Keystone Tower, and by the way, Keystone means it's the final piece of the puzzle. This is their final piece of the puzzle. It's the most important and remarkable feature in Masonry, and it's the final key that holds their entire structure in place, which is why this is still relevant. What I've shown today is still relevant because they're still doing it. And this is their like their big marker, and this is going to be the largest skyscraper in Adelaide. It's slated to be finished building 37 stories, supposed to finish building in 2007. It's going to be an absolute eyesore. It sounds utterly disgusting. 38 stories wide, tall, 160 meters high. And it's interesting how it's described as iconic and eye-catching. I just had to put that in there because of all the eye symbolism. So there you go. You've got your Keystone Tower. They're doing that now. So that's their way of saying everything's in place now. We put this last keystone in place and we can lord it over you even more. And that's why I've shared this today. I want to expose this so they can't lord it over us anymore, because I want this to be shared far and wide, that people can see what they've been doing and the way that they've co-opted these ley lines. One thing that people don't understand, ley lines are energetic channels. They are the Earth's meridians. They're part of her energy system. If you went off and had some acupuncture done, the acupuncturist would find the meridians on your body that are blocked, and they would use the acupuncture to unblock those meridians, because if your meridians are blocked, you will get sick. This is what they're trying to do to the land. They're trying to make it sick. They're trying to control us. They're trying to lord it over us. They're trying to point out to each other how stupid we are for not noticing all of the symbolism and everything that they've pointed out. So this is why I'm sharing this today. I want to put this out after the presentations given on Saturday, the 24th of May. Get it out to as many people as possible if you can. This is their undoing. Symbolism will literally be their downfall. And this is why I keep sharing this. So in conclusion, I just want to reiterate that this knowledge hasn't been shared to disarm or distress anybody. Knowledge is power. To be forearmed is to be forewarned. So if you know this is going on, you can keep an eye out for it. If they've got some new planning development they want to do, you can go in and have a look at the plans and see what sort of symbolism are they putting in there? What sort of names are they putting in there? Who is organising it? Are they a Mason? Are they a really high level Mason? Who do they know? Are they part of the aristocracy or a bloodline family? Through my work with Lay Love Down, during a recent earth healing course that I did with a beautiful woman called Hayley Wallace, I've learned that we can heal anything with intent, with our voices, and using some simple, inexpensive tools like crystals. So if you see this and you feel, motivated to go out and do something about it, take some crystals. It doesn't even have to be a big, expensive crystal. As Hayley pointed out, the tiniest crystals, the tiniest chips, have the same frequency as the larger body of crystal. So you can take tiny chips of crystal and put them in the grounds in various places with the intent that you are going to change, balance out the frequency of what they're doing, restore the ley lines back to where they originally would have been and where their energy allows them to travel. We are so incredibly powerful. Our greatest tool is our intent. By placing the crystal, what you're doing is you're activating it and telling it to do that work. Also, when you place a crystal in the ground and you've touched that crystal, it has your frequency on it, it has your DNA on it, and you can remotely connect with it and, again, reactivate it. Every time you think of that crystal, reactivating that crystal, you're creating balance in that ley lines with the right intent. It's not complicated. So they have done it in a very complicated way with massive buildings and huge amounts of stone. We can do it in a much less complicated way because there are many, many, many more of us. There's approximately 45,000 Masons in Australia. And there's what, 27, 28 million of us. So, you know, they make a very small number. The first thing we need to do to heal these spaces is knowledge. And you have that knowledge now. So go out to the places where the symbolism is the most obvious. Go out to these squares. You know, go with the right energetic protection. You can find protocols for energetic protection on the Lay Love Down website under tools. So go and have a look for that. So with this knowledge and with the desire to change what's been done to this land, you can set out into those parts of Adelaide with the intent to heal those areas which are under the darkest control. You can go armed with crystals, with sound instruments, tuning forks, or with your own God-given voice, and make a difference. I am not religious, but I've been told that there is a passage in the Bible which states that the last fight will be over the ley lines, and I believe that that time is now. Knowledge is power. Freemasons, Luciferians, and Satanists assume we're all too stupid to see what they've done and continue to do. We are all proof that they are wrong. Use your power, change the world for the better, help take back the ley lines for good. That's what we're doing. We're taking back the ley lines. The last fight is over these lines. We are in that time. This is where we do this. This is where we make the change. And it's all just about letting people know how and going out and doing it in your own way. If you don't want to go out onto the land yourself, you can do it through guided meditations. There are so many different ways. All we need is the numbers. And I estimate maybe about 10,000. We need about 10,000 people to be doing this on a regular basis to make the difference. It's not a lot of people. All right. Thanks so much for listening to my presentation today. Share as much as you can. Yeah, it's nerve-wracking putting out this stuff, but it's very, very important. So, you know, I'm at the point now where I don't care who thinks I'm crazy. All the evidence is there. I mean, it's so friggin' obvious. So go for it. Share away. All right. Thanks, guys.